Hello dear students, welcome to our series on geography. Today we deal with terrain pattern in Asia in the second episode in this series on world regional geography. Today let us try to understand how the continent has shaped the terrain pattern. The following subjects are the main geographical features of terrain. Today we shall study terrain pattern, birth of mountains, mineral deposits and soil pattern, shaping of ecosystems, and how biodiversity profile is influenced by terrain pattern. So, let us begin with terrain pattern. Terrain or landform in a particular region is primarily created by geological forces. These geological forces can be drift of tectonic plates, volcanic eruptions, birth of mountains, plateaus, deserts, rivers and deltaic ecosystems as well as riparian ecosystems. In Asia, we see the cataclysmic clash of Gondwana land against the underbelly of Asia, which resulted in the formation of a whole range of fold mountains starting from Central Asia. We come to the birth of these fold mountains a little later. The Palmyra Knot in Central Asia created ripple effects on bedrock and heaved up the land in many places to create tablelands and plateaus. Other geological factors that influence terrain pattern include ridges that enable the water to flow and create rivers, coupled with weather patterns, ocean currents, windfall, rainfall and snowfall patterns, as well as the terrain pattern, a biodiversity profile emerged which in turn influenced agricultural evolution, cultivation, crop patterns and agricultural best practices. This set of agro-meteorological conditions helped man develop traditions and vocations adapted perfectly to his living conditions. These are all the subjects we will attempt to understand in greater detail in the coming weeks. Terrain includes a set of geographical features including but not limited to bedrock, caves, rock formations both under and over the ground, hills, mountains, plateaus, canyons and cliffs, ridges both on land and on the sea floor, different types of soil, rivers, streams, brooks, waterfalls, etc., freshwater and saltwater lakes and lagoons, estuaries and deltaic ecosystems, mud flats, deserts, sand dunes, fertile plains, etc. Terrain creation is influenced by a number of factors. Millions of years of erosion of rocks have developed into different types of soil. There is a subtle difference between the terms terrain and ecosystem. While terrain can be construed as a distinct landform evolving into a particular geographical feature, ecosystem refers to the environment created by the terrain and can include trees, forest or canopy, water bodies, ambient temperature, rainfall, snowfall and wind patterns, and the wildlife, microbes, flora and fauna that the particular landform or water body supports and sustains. The Palmyra Knot. The Palmyra Knot is a high plateau at the convergence of the Eurasian plate with the Gondwana land. This cataclysmic clash of the two tectonic plates gave rise to the Palmyra Knot, which is the birthplace of many fold mountains emanating from Central Asia. The ripple effects on bedrock caused by the clash of the tectonic plates led to the birth of many fold mountains. Three tectonic plates converge at Central Asia. These are the Gondwana land, the Australasian plate and the Eurasian plate. The Middle Eastern plate or Arabian plate is not clearly earmarked as another plate in itself, but nevertheless we need to reckon with it. The thrust of the rocks where Gondwana land clashes against Asia is at the rate of 48 millimeters per year. The creation of fold mountains of Himalayas helped form another set of fold mountains of a lesser height, the Vindhyas, Aravalis and Satpuras, which slope westward. Thereon, they form sand dunes and then the Thar Desert. So, we get a picture now of how terrain is formed. As the tectonic plates clashed at the Palmyra Knot at 38 degrees 22 north latitude and 72 degrees 52 east longitude, the rise of the fold mountains of the Himalayas caused a thrust of subterranean rocks in the Terai arc south of the Himalayas. This corresponds to the Indo-Gangetic plains on the north banks of the Ganges in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, southeast of New Delhi, from 27 degrees 45 north latitude to 77 degrees 36 east longitude. This continuous thrust against the Himalayas also causes the sustained growth of both the Himalayan fold mountains as well as sustains the height of the Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau is supported by the upheaval of the mountains on its southwest, that is the mountain chain, the Western Ghats. The Deccan Plateau thus slopes east. This explains why almost all the Indian rivers drain into the Bay of Bengal. The rivers find it difficult to drain themselves uphill through the west coast. The few rivers that do drain into the Arabian Sea on the west coast drill channels through the mountain passes and drain west. The major west flowing rivers include the Narmada and the Tapti, the Mandovi or the Mahadai, the Kali, Sharavati, Aghanashini, Netravati, Kumardhara and almost all the rivers in Kerala, that is 41 of Kerala's 44 rivers drain west to the Arabian Sea. At least 62 rivers take birth in the Western Ghats. With almost all the major Indian rivers flowing with minerals, salts and soils towards the Bay of Bengal, the Deccan Plateau slopes eastward. Consequently, the Eastern Ghats is comparatively lower and subsides gently into the coast on the Bay of Bengal. After touching the coast, the plateau slopes very steeply into the ocean floor, becoming the continental shelf. A plateau may be defined as a landmass rendered high or uplifted from the sea level because of the movement of bedrocks. Examples of other plateaus are the Iranian Plateau, also known as the Persian Plateau, which is a geological formation in Southwest Asia and is part of the Eurasian plate. The Iranian Plateau is wedged between the Arabian and the Indian plates. It has the Zagros Mountains to the west, the Caspian Sea to the north, the Straits of Hormuz and the Arabian Sea to the south, and the Indus River to the east. Often, plateaus are marked distinctively by geological features like river basins, flow of rivers, deserts, mountains, seas, bays, etc., as well as distinctive edges. Similarly, the Deccan Plateau is also hemmed in by geological features. It is a marked highland heaved up from the surrounding coastal belt in the Indian peninsula. The northern edges of Deccan Plateau are marked by the mountain ranges of Vindhyas, Aravallis and the Satpuras in the northwest and the Indo-Gangetic plain in the northeast, while the Western Ghats distinct from the coastal belts. Coastal belts in India are pockmarked by deltas and estuaries, mangrove and littoral forests, swamps and lagoons on the east coast. The Western Ghats, a high mountain range on the west coast, is marked by the western coastal plain, estuaries and mangroves and swamps. It is the Western Ghats that heaves and keeps aloft the Deccan Plateau on its western ledge. The Eastern Ghats is a ridge of a lesser height as compared to the Western Ghats that nevertheless lowers the plateau towards the Bay of Bengal. The rise of the mountain ranges from the Palmyra Knot in different directions plowed ridges and channels all over South Asia. Tracing the river paths all along, innumerable rivers take their birth in the Palmyra Knot and drain down salts and minerals during their dance down the ridges towards the oceans. Thanks to these rivers, much of South Asia is rendered infinitely fertile. The Yangtze-Kiang, the Honghe and Mekong flow through much of China. Mekong flows through as many as 13 countries before touching the Pacific coast of Vietnam. The Ganges, the Yamuna, the Brahmaputra, the Tsangpo, Indus and her 4 tributaries, Tigris and Euphrates, Irrawaddy are the major rivers in Asia. Nevertheless, a total of 32 big rivers drain the salts and soils of Asia to the oceans around the continent. South Asia is replete with estuaries and deltas of massive river systems. Birth of mountains. When the Gondwana land, the tectonic plate on which the Indian subcontinent sits, clashed against the then Asiatic coast, the resulting upheaval created a series of mountain chains and high plateaus. These mountain chains and plateaus in Asia include the Altai Mountains, the Barasan Mountains, Caucasus Mountains, Elburz Mountains, Hindu Kush Mountains, the Himalayas, Karakoram, Khorasan, Kunlun. Owing to the rise of these fold mountains, the rest of the contours in Asia took shape. The mountain ranges listed above rise from the bedrock of the Earth's crust as if they sew the Earth's landmass into differing contours. Owing to the thrust of Gondwana land against the Asiatic plate at the rate of 48 millimeters per annum, which continues to this day since 200 million years ago, these mountain ranges are still growing. This thrust leads the mountains to grow in folds. Hence, all these mountains listed above except the plateaus are fold mountains. Combining with the climatic zones, these mountain ranges have created ripple effects in the terrain pattern of the entire continent. The ripple effects from the birth of mountains in the Palmyra Knot have pushed and pulled the subterranean rocks, heaved the Earth's crust in many places, created huge lagoons, morphed into plateaus, and all these terrain patterns developed into various kinds of ecosystems. Combining with the climatic zones, the ocean currents, riparian drainage patterns, and the gravitational pull, altitude, and zones, all factors in turn were influenced, and in turn they too influenced the meteorological or climatic conditions. Asia thus offers a myriad set of terrain patterns. These include fertile plains that are the river basins full of alluvial soils, ideal for agriculture and cultivation of crops, example the Indo-Gangetic fertile plains. Plateaus interspersed with rocks, caves, deltas, estuaries, and riparian ecosystems, for example Deccan Plateau, Tibetan Plateau, Iranian Plateau, and the Mongolian Plateau. Coastal belts or coastal plains that nurture mangrove and littoral forests. Examples of mangrove forests are seen at Pichavaram, Sundarbans, and all over the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Estuarine and deltaic ecosystems overflowing with saltwater lagoons, offering fertile fishing grounds and habitat for endangered marine fauna like turtles, estuarine crocodiles, prawns, crabs, etc. Mud flats, coastal lagoons, underwater ridges in rivers, seas, and oceans, snow-drenched Arctic climes and glaciers, mountain ranges including fold mountains, block mountains, dome mountains, volcanic mountains, and ridges, riverine plains and riparian ecosystems, glaciers, floodplains, desert ecosystems, sand dunes including hot and cold deserts. Examples for cold desert include Ladakh and the Mongolian desert, and examples of hot deserts include the Arabian desert, all deserts in the Middle East, Thar desert in India, and the Gobi desert in China. Grasslands and savanna ecosystems that support cultivation, arid zones that drain all rainfall, caves, rocky areas, cliffs, coasts, and cold deserts, fallow lands, and fertile lands. Chemical factors influencing terrain pattern has caused the development of mineral salts and mineral resources, blessing certain areas of the landscape with specially endowed mineral wealth. As a rule, areas with extinct volcanoes are very rich in biodiversity and mineral wealth. Apart from extinct volcanic areas like India's Western Ghats, for instance, mineral deposits are found in large areas of Asia. The rich terrain diversity in India has led to deposits of a myriad variety of minerals in various places. Among Asia's rich repertoire of mineral deposits, mention may be made among others of aluminum, antimony, arsenic, asbestos, barium, bauxite, borax, cadmium, calcium. Soils begin to form when environmental forces break down rocks and similar materials that lie on or near the Earth's surface. A diverse set of geographical features like monuments, rivers, different kinds of water bodies, minerals and temperatures, different types of erosion, zonation, ecosystems have yielded different kinds of soil in Asia. Pedologists or soil scientists call the resulting matter parent material. As soil develops through the centuries, organic material collects and the soil resembles the parent material less and less. Glaciers, rivers, wind and other environmental forces may move parent material and soil from one area to another. The kinds of parent material. The type of parent material helps determine the kinds of mineral particles in a soil. A process called weathering breaks down parent material into mineral particles. There are two kinds of weathering: physical disintegration and chemical decomposition. Physical disintegration is caused by ice, rain, wind and other forces. They wear down rocks into smaller particles that have the same composition as the parent material. Sand and silt result from physical disintegration. Decaying organic material releases nutrients into the soil. In addition, some organic material combines with mineral particles. Other decaying material forms organic soil particles called humus. Most humus is black or dark brown and it holds large amounts of water. Only 6 to 12% of the volume of particles in most mineral soils is organic. However, these small quantities greatly increase a soil's ability to support plant life. In some soils, called organic soils, more than 20% of the soil particles are organic. Water that enters the soil dissolves minerals and nutrients and forms a soil solution. Much of the solution drains away, but some remains in the pore spaces. Green plants obtain water and some nutrients by absorbing soil solution through their roots. Air replaces the water that drains from the larger pore spaces. Soil organisms live best in soils that contain almost equal amounts of air and water. These include rich topsoil comprising of red soils and black soil, gravel, sand, alluvial soil, clayey soil, silt, etc. Soil layers are formed by erosion of bedrock combined with factors such as intensity of wind speeds, rate of rainfall, relative humidity and mean temperatures, thawing and freezing factors, etc. Soil is enriched by nutrients found in animal feces, humus or decaying leaf litter, moisture content in the atmosphere as well as in the ground surface, presence of groundwater aquifers, etc. The importance of soil is evident from the fact that all life on earth depends on soil as a direct or indirect source of food. Soil contains minerals and organic particles, other plant and animal matter, air and water. The contents of soil change constantly. There are many kinds of soil and each has certain characteristics including color and composition. The kind of soil in an area helps determine how well crops grow there. Soil forms slowly and is destroyed easily and so it must be covered so it can continue to support life. Characteristics of soil. The method and formation of soil formation differs throughout a body of soil. As a result, the soil develops layers. These layers are called soil horizons. Soil horizons may be thick or thin and they may resemble or differ from the surrounding horizons. The boundaries between the layers can be distinct or barely noticeable. Most soils include three major horizons. The upper two, called the topsoil, is padded below by subsoil, which is exposed to little weathering as it is protected by the topsoil. The composition of the subsoil resembles that of the parent material. Soil scientists describe soils by the characteristics of the soil horizons, including color, texture, structure and chemical conditions. Color of soil. Soils range in color from yellow and red to dark brown and black. The color of the soil helps soil scientists or pedologists to estimate the amount of water, air, organic matter and certain elements in the soil. For example, a red color may indicate that iron compounds are present in the soil. Texture of soil. Texture of a soil depends on the size of its mineral particles. Sands are the largest particles. The individual grains can be seen and felt. Silts are just large enough to be seen and clay particles are microscopic. Pedologists divide soils into textural classes according to the amounts of sand, silt and clay matter in a soil sample. For example, the mineral portions of soils classified as loam contain 7 to 27% clay and less than 52% sand. In silty clay, more than 40% of the mineral particles are clay and more than 40% are silt. Texture helps determine how thoroughly water drains from the soil. Sands promote drainage better than clays. Soil conservation. The soils of farmlands and forest lands provide many products and recreational areas. Soil conservationists work to ensure the wise use of these soils. Farmers add organic matter to the soil by plowing under certain green plants. They also add fertilizers and rotate crops to replace nutrients that leaching and growing plants remove. In addition, farmers plow and plant their fields in ways that control erosion. On the forest floor, thousands of years of collection of leaf litter, fallen fruits, berries, nuts and mosses and animal excreta add to soil moisture and enrich the groundwater aquifers by retaining moisture. The forest floor enriched by the leaf litter of tropical forests act as catchment areas for the monsoon cycles, which in turn feed the rivers. Hence, conservation of the catchment area for the monsoons is critical for the entire regional environment and ecosystem. The rivers feed the oceans and the oceans in turn evaporate to feed the monsoon bearing clouds, thus completing the nature cycle. Without the monsoons, agriculture would be severely jeopardized. Terrain and weather patterns are interdependent. We see this best in windswept sand dunes and beaches where wind erosion sustains the terrain pattern. Monsoon cycles drive and sustain the tropical rainforests, desert ecosystems as well as in dry rocky zones. Wind erosion accounts for the decimation of rocks into sand and gravel. Sand and gravel enable runoff of rainwater and subterranean aquifers and underground rivers. The forested hill canopies on the Himalayas and the Western Ghats in India serve as catchment area for the monsoon drift that blesses all the Indian Ocean rim countries with an annual monsoon cycle. But the pressure of development compromises the conservation quotient, and without catchment area conservation, the rainfall pattern has altered significantly, decreasing the rainfall, increasing the frequency of floods and droughts and other agro-meteorological factors, precipitating droughts, floods, agricultural output, climate change and water consumption patterns right across South Asia. Biodiversity profile. Given the rich terrain diversity and the even more prolific and fertile grounds created by deltas and mountains, the biodiversity profile in Asia is very rich. Of the 34 biodiversity hotspots in the whole world, 13 are located in Asia. A biodiversity hotspot is a biogeographic region with a significant reservoir of biodiversity that is under threat from humans. The concept of biodiversity hotspots was originated by Norman Myers in two articles in 1888 and 1990. Revised after thorough analysis by Myers et al. In Hotspots, Earth's biologically richest and most endangered terrestrial ecoregions. To qualify as a biodiversity hotspot on Myers 2000 edition of the hotspot map, a region must meet two strict criteria. It must contain at least 0.5% or 1,500 species of vascular plants as endemics, and it has to have lost at least 70% of its primary vegetation. These 34 biodiversity hotspots harbor a mega diversity of flora and fauna. More than 1,500 of such species are native to each of these 13 biodiversity hotspots in Asia alone. The rich rainforests of Sunda land, comprising East Indies and Indonesia, Polynesia and Micronesia, besides the rainforests of the archipelagos in South China Sea and the Java Sea, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and across the Indian subcontinent, east of Tibetan Plateau, they all contribute to the tremendous faunal and floral diversity of Asia. The impenetrability of these rich rainforests is best gauged from the thick forest canopies and the rich arboreal life of the wildlife of these forests. Birds to mammals, amphibians to snakes, insects, crustaceans and cetaceans are all found in different regions of Asia. While cetaceans refer to marine mammals found in the seas, aquatic wildlife are found in major river systems in Asia. All other specimens of Asian wildlife dwells on or under the canopy of the Asian forests. There are also unique desert wildlife like wolves, vipers, spiders and scorpions, which are not found to be occurring in the forest canopies of Asia. Tropical rainforests, wet evergreen forests, moist deciduous forests, dry deciduous forests, grassland ecosystems dot the tropical zones, and in the higher latitudes there are grassland forests and pine forests besides tundra vegetation and snow-drenched coniferous forests. We will deal with natural vegetation, flora and fauna in a future episode. With this, we now conclude the current episode on terrain pattern in Asia. Thanks to the various geological phenomena that preceded the creation of the continent post-Pangaea, a myriad set of contours developed in Asia. Mountains, rivers, deserts, fertile agricultural plains, estuaries and deltaic ecosystems, coastal belts, island ecosystems and desert ecosystems. Each of this ecosystem is marked by its own unique and endemic biodiversity, including faunal and floral diversity. In the next episode, we shall study how the riparian ecosystem evolved, the drainage patterns, rainfall, climate patterns, critical significance of monsoons in Asia, and how it is part of the planet's rainfall pattern, and seasons will indeed provide interesting insights, I assure you.